The Sydney Body in the Suitcase, inspired by true crime stories. Welcome to Crime Stories PH, where we uncover the darkest secrets hidden in plain sight. Today, we bring you the Sydney Body in the Suitcase. Country, Australia. Inspired by the case of Carly Pearce Stevenson and her daughter. A chilling discovery in the Australian outback leads police into a case involving identity theft, online dating scams, and the horrifying murder of a mother and her young daughter. This is Crime Stories PH, where truth is stranger than fiction. The Australian outback is a place of stark beauty and unforgiving terrain, a landscape where secrets can remain hidden for years. But on July 15, 2018, the Earth gave up one of its darkest mysteries when two hikers stumbled upon a weathered suitcase partially buried in the red soil just off the Hume Highway, about 80 kilometers southwest of Sydney. "I thought it was trash at first," recalled Sarah Mendez, one of the hikers who discovered the suitcase. "People are always dumping stuff out here. But then I saw what looked like fabric and something else. That's when I knew we needed to call the police." What Sarah saw wasn't fabric. It was hair, human hair, belonging to a young woman whose decomposed remains had been stuffed into the large travel suitcase and abandoned in the unforgiving Australian wilderness. Detective Inspector Emma Collins would later describe it as one of the most disturbing crime scenes of her 18-year career. The victim had been folded into the suitcase in a way that defied human compassion, she told reporters at a press conference. Whoever did this didn't just commit murder. They stripped away this woman's dignity in death. Forensic analysis would eventually identify the victim as Melissa Warren, a 24-year-old single mother from Brisbane who had been reported missing 11 months earlier. But Melissa wasn't just any missing person case. Her disappearance was part of a sinister web of deception that had fooled her family, friends, and authorities for nearly a year. Most disturbingly, Melissa's 4-year-old daughter, Lily, was also missing, and no one could explain why her social media accounts had remained active long after she had vanished. The discovery of Melissa's body wasn't the end of the mystery. It was just the beginning. Melissa Warren moved to Sydney in early 2017 with her daughter Lily, telling friends and family she was seeking a fresh start after separating from Lily's father. A bright, friendly woman with an easy smile, Melissa had worked as a dental receptionist in Brisbane but hoped to find better opportunities in the bigger city. She was really optimistic about Sydney, said her mother, Joan Warren. She posted pictures of her and Lily at the Opera House, at Bondi Beach. They seemed happy. "I never imagined it would be the last time I'd see my daughter and granddaughter alive." For several months, everything seemed normal. Melissa found a job at a dental clinic in Parramatta and rented a small 2-bedroom apartment. She enrolled Lily in a local preschool and made a few friends. She even started dating again, mentioning to her mother that she'd met someone online named Ryan, who seemed promising. Then, in August 2017, the messages from Melissa changed. She texted her mother saying she'd decided to take Lily on a road trip around Australia. Something completely out of character for the typically routine-oriented young mother. "We're going to see everything this country has to offer," the text read. "Might be off-grid for a while. Don't worry about us." Joan tried calling, but Melissa's phone went straight to voicemail. For the next several months, communication was limited to occasional text messages and social media updates. Pictures of Australian landmarks, brief updates about their travels, and reassurances that they were having the adventure of a lifetime. But something felt off to Joan. The photos never showed Melissa's or Lily's faces clearly. The writing style and the messages seemed different. When Joan expressed concern, Melissa became defensive and began communicating less frequently, even more unsettling. During this time, Melissa's bank accounts continued to see activity. Her work benefits were still being claimed. Her Medicare card was used for medical services in 3 different states. It was as if Melissa and Lily were living their lives, except they weren't the ones doing it. Detective Inspector Emma Collins stared at the bulletin board in the incident room, her eyes tracing the timeline that her team had constructed. Red string connected photographs, statements, and forensic reports, creating a web of evidence that told a horrifying story. The autopsy had revealed that Melissa Warren had been strangled to death, likely in September 2017, just weeks after her supposed road trip began. Her body had been kept somewhere cold before being disposed of in the suitcase, possibly months later. Trace evidence suggested she had died in a location with distinctive industrial carpet fibers not matching her apartment. But the most disturbing revelation came when detectives began investigating Melissa's digital footprint. Someone had been systematically impersonating Melissa online for nearly a year after her death, Detective Collins explained. They had access to her passwords, her banking information, her social media accounts. They were essentially living a digital version of her life while she lay dead. The impersonator had been meticulous. They paid Melissa's bills online. They maintained just enough social media activity to seem plausible. They even responded to birthday wishes and holiday greetings from friends and family. And they had been steadily draining Melissa's accounts. Not all at once, which would have raised red flags, but in small, regular amounts that wouldn't attract attention. Most chillingly, when detectives obtained Melissa's phone records, they discovered that in the weeks before her disappearance, she had been in frequent communication with a prepaid phone purchased with cash at a convenience store in Western Sydney. The owner of that phone remained unknown. As for Lily, there was no trace of the little girl. No body, no evidence of what had happened to her. The preschool confirmed that Lily had stopped attending in late August 2017, with Melissa emailing that they were moving interstate. We have to face the possibility that whoever killed Melissa also harmed her daughter, Detective Collins told her team grimly. But until we find evidence one way or another, we treat this as if Lily could still be alive. The investigation took a significant turn when detectives discovered that in the months before her disappearance, Melissa had joined several online dating sites. On one platform, she had exchanged numerous messages with a user calling himself Ryan James, who claimed to be a 32-year-old financial consultant. When police tried to trace the account, they hit a dead end. Ryan James didn't exist. His profile photos belonged to a model from Manchester, England. The IP addresses used to access the account bounced through various VPNs. But one message sent by Ryan contained a crucial mistake: a single login from an unprotected network at a cafe in Blacktown, a suburb of Sydney. That digital breadcrumb would eventually lead police to Daniel Shepard, a 36-year-old IT specialist with a history of fraud and identity theft. What they didn't expect to find was evidence linking him to 3 other missing women across Australia. Melissa's phone pinged off a cell tower in Blacktown at 9:17 p.m. on September 3rd, 2017. It was the last verifiable location of her device before her digital identity was hijacked. Security footage from a gas station 2 blocks away showed her silver Toyota Corolla pulling in at 9:22 p.m. The camera caught a partial glimpse of a man in the passenger seat. Not enough for a positive ID, but enough to confirm Melissa wasn't alone. The car was found 3 weeks later in a long-term parking lot at Sydney Airport, wiped clean of fingerprints. By tracking Melissa's movements through her cell phone data, credit card usage, and security camera footage, detectives pieced together her final days. She had met Ryan for coffee twice, then dinner once. On September 3rd, they had arranged to meet at a restaurant in Parramatta. Melissa had dropped Lily off with a babysitter, promising to be back by midnight. She never returned. The babysitter, alarmed when Melissa didn't come home, called her repeatedly. At 2:13 a.m., she received a text, "Sorry for the late notice. Having such a great time staying at Ryan's. We'll pick up Lily tomorrow. Thanks for being flexible." The next day, Melissa texted again, asking the babysitter to meet her at a shopping center to hand over Lily. Security cameras showed a woman wearing sunglasses and a hat, her face deliberately angled away from cameras, taking Lily by the hand and walking away. That woman was not Melissa Warren. And after that day, no one would see Lily again. The breakthrough in the case came from an unexpected source. A bank teller in Melbourne noticed something unusual about a woman attempting to withdraw funds from Melissa Warren's account. Although she had all the correct identification and knew the security answers, something about her behavior raised a red flag. She was fidgety, kept looking at her phone like she was checking information, the teller later testified. When I asked her additional security questions, she got agitated and left. The bank security camera captured a clear image of the woman, later identified as Vanessa Shepherd, Daniel Shepherd's sister. When confronted by police, Vanessa broke down and revealed the horrifying truth. Her brother had been running elaborate identity theft operations for years, targeting single mothers through dating apps. His method was calculated: gain their trust, access their personal information, and then eliminate them while assuming control of their financial lives. He called them perfect targets, Vanessa told investigators through tears. Single moms are on these apps looking for connection. They're often financially stretched, so no one questions if they move for a job opportunity or decide to travel. And they have access to additional benefits, childcare subsidies, family payments, even the children's accounts. Daniel Shepherd had killed at least 4 women that investigators could confirm. But it was what happened to the children that revealed the true depth of his depravity. He said the kids were portable gold mines, Vanessa admitted. He didn't always kill them. Sometimes he sold them. The human trafficking angle transformed the investigation from a murder case into something far larger. Federal agencies became involved. International alerts were issued. And somewhere in this dark network of exploitation, detectives hoped they might find Lily Warren. Daniel's apartment in Blacktown yielded disturbing evidence. A makeshift photography studio where he took pictures of his victims' children. Files on his encrypted hard drives contained forged identification documents for multiple children. Financial records showed payments from overseas accounts traced to known trafficking networks. Most damning was a notebook containing details of merchandise, children described by age, appearance, and temperament. Lily Warren's name was on that list. The entry next to her name contained 3 words that gave investigators their first real hope: placement, Gold Coast. Across Australia, police departments began connecting previously unrelated cases to Daniel Shepherd's operation. In Perth, a 5-year-old boy who had supposedly moved overseas with his mother was now suspected to be a victim. In Adelaide, 2 sisters whose mother had abandoned them for a new life in Europe were added to the list of missing children. The investigation expanded to involve Interpol when financial records suggested connections to trafficking networks in Southeast Asia and Eastern Europe. But for Detective Collins, finding Lily Warren remained the most urgent priority. The Gold Coast lead provided a crucial starting point, narrowing the search area from an entire continent to a specific region. If she's still in Australia, we have a better chance of finding her, Collins told her team. And every piece of evidence suggests Shepherd's domestic network handled her placement. Vanessa Shepherd provided another crucial piece of information. Her brother worked with a woman named Diane Mercer, a childcare worker who helped process the children, changing their appearances, coaching them on new identities, and preparing them for placement with their new families. When police raided Mercer's home in Brisbane, they found evidence of multiple children having passed through, small clothing items, toys, and most importantly, a folder containing photographs of children with their before and after appearances. Among them was a picture of Lily Warren with dyed black hair and bangs, looking scared and confused. Another photo showed her standing next to an older couple on what appeared to be a backyard patio. The metadata embedded in the digital image provided its exact location: a house in Surfer's Paradise on the Gold Coast. The house on Orchid Avenue in Surfer's Paradise looked like any other well-maintained suburban home. Flowering bushes lined the walkway to the front door. A late-model SUV sat in the driveway. A child's bicycle leaned against the garage. Inside lived Gerald and Margaret Walsh, a couple in their 60s with no criminal record. Gerald was a retired accountant. Margaret had worked as a nurse before retirement. They had no children of their own, but had recently become the legal guardians of their granddaughter following the supposed death of her mother in a car accident overseas. That granddaughter was actually Lily Warren, now using the name Sophie Walsh. The Walshes weren't traffickers in the traditional sense. They were desperate people who had paid a substantial sum to an underground adoption network after being rejected by legitimate agencies due to their age. They believed the story they'd been told, that Sophie's mother had arranged for her placement before her death, that all the paperwork was legitimate. The raid on the Walsh home was conducted with extreme care, prioritizing Lily's psychological well-being. Child psychologists and specialized officers trained in recovering trafficked children led the operation. When authorities entered the home, they found Lily playing in the living room. Despite her dyed hair and new name, there was no doubt about her identity. DNA testing would later confirm she was indeed Melissa Warren's missing daughter. The recovery was just the beginning of a long healing process. Lily had been told her mother had died. She had been coached to call the Walshes her grandparents. She had been given a new identity, new memories, a new life built entirely on lies. Joan Warren, who had spent over a year believing she might have lost both her daughter and granddaughter, described seeing Lily again as being given back a piece of my heart. She didn't recognize me at first, Joan recalled, wiping away tears. They had shown her Photoshop pictures of different people, told her those were her relatives. She'd been living in this bubble of lies. But when I sang the lullaby I used to sing to her as a baby, I saw something in her eyes, a flicker of recognition. That's when I knew we could bring her back to us. The case of Melissa and Lily Warren exposed a troubling criminal enterprise operating across Australia. Daniel Shepard wasn't just a murderer and identity thief. He was part of a sophisticated network that preyed on vulnerable women and children, exploiting gaps in social services and digital identity verification systems. In total, authorities identified 17 children who had been trafficked through this network over a 5-year period. 15 were eventually recovered and reunited with extended family. 2 remain missing, their case is still open. Daniel Shepard was arrested at Sydney Airport while attempting to flee the country. In his possession were 6 different passports and identity documents for 3 different personas. During interrogation, he remained cold and calculating, showing no remorse for his actions. These women made it easy, he told investigators in a recorded interview that would later be played at his trial. They put their whole lives online. They trusted too quickly. They wanted to believe someone could love them and their baggage. The network extended beyond Shepard, his sister, and Diane Mercer. 8 other accomplices were eventually identified, including a corrupt family court lawyer who had created fraudulent guardianship papers and a former border protection officer who helped falsify travel documents. The case led to significant reforms in Australia's digital identity verification systems, child protection protocols, and monitoring of family court proceedings. Dating apps implemented new safety features specifically designed to protect single parents. 3 years after Melissa Warren's body was found in that weathered suitcase in the outback, a memorial garden was established in a park in Brisbane where she used to take Lily to play. A simple plaque reads, "In memory of Melissa Warren, whose love for her daughter transcends even death." Lily, now 8 years old, lives with her grandmother Joan. The psychological impacts of her experience remain, but with therapy and support, she has begun to heal. She keeps a photo of her mother by her bed and sometimes talks to it, telling Melissa about her day. "I want her to grow up knowing who her mother really was," Joan says. "Not the digital ghost that criminal created, but the real Melissa. Her kindness, her laugh, the way she'd dance around the kitchen while making pancakes on Sunday mornings." The Walshes, who had paid over $120,000 to the Trafficking network, believing they were participating in a private adoption, were eventually charged with lesser crimes, including possession of fraudulent documents. Their case highlighted a gray area in the criminal justice system. People who participate in trafficking without fully understanding the violent origins of the network. "They loved Lily in their way," Joan acknowledged. "But love built on lies is still wrong. They should have asked more questions about where she came from." Daniel Shepard was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for the murders of Melissa Warren and 3 other women. Additional charges related to child trafficking, identity theft, and fraud added multiple consecutive sentences. He will never walk free again. In the digital age, Melissa Warren's case serves as a sobering reminder of how vulnerable our identities can be, how our digital footprints can be manipulated, how our online presence can be weaponized against us even after death. When we found Melissa's body, we thought we'd discover the end of a tragedy, Detective Collins reflected at the conclusion of the case. Instead, we'd uncovered just one victim of a predator who had turned identity theft into something far more sinister. He didn't just steal their financial information. He stole their lives, their children, their very existence. The investigation transformed how Australian law enforcement approaches missing persons cases, particularly when the missing person's digital presence remains active. New protocols now require verification beyond text messages and social media posts. Lily Warren's recovery became a template for how to reintegrate trafficked children who have been living under false identities. The psychological approach developed during her case has since been adopted internationally. Joan Warren has become an advocate for online safety, particularly for single parents using dating apps. She speaks at schools and community centers, sharing her daughter's story to educate others about the dangers that can lurk behind friendly profile pictures. Melissa would want her story to protect others, Joan says. That's the kind of person she was, always looking out for people, always wanting to help. In that way, she's still with us, still making a difference. As for Lily, she started writing letters to her mother, a suggestion from her therapist to help process her grief and maintain a connection to the parent she lost. She keeps them in a special box decorated with seashells collected from Bondi Beach, where she and her mother spent happy days before their world was shattered. "Dear Mom," one letter begins, "Grandma says you're watching over me from heaven. I hope you can see that I'm okay now. I remember your hugs sometimes. I miss them a lot." The Sydney body in the Suitcase case remains one of Australia's most disturbing modern crimes, not just for the brutality of the murder, but for the calculated exploitation that followed. It revealed how in our interconnected world, victimization doesn't necessarily end with death. It showed how the vulnerable can be targeted through the very tools meant to connect us. And ultimately, it demonstrated how justice, while imperfect, can still prevail even against the most sophisticated criminal enterprises. For Lily Warren, each year on her birthday, she and her grandmother release butterflies in Melissa's memory, a tradition that represents transformation and continuing life. Mommy sends them to visit me. Lily explains with a wisdom that sometimes only comes from surviving the unthinkable. They're beautiful and free, just like she is now. The final butterfly always stays around the longest, hovering near Lily before finally drifting away on the Australian breeze. A poignant reminder that while some stories end in tragedy, healing and hope can still take flight. The end.